We begin with the theme song. Here's the story of Strange and Alicia, a scheming little con man and a thief. They would cheat and steal around the solar system and give the rich folks grief. Here's the story of Ty the hacker, Max the muscle, and Shweta the grifter-in-chief, Kane the new kid, and Damien the pilot, all skilled beyond belief. Then one day they heard the rumor of a station with a jackpot that they simply couldn't snub. So they went to Orca without hesitation. That's the way they all became the Cannibal Club. The Cannibal Club. The Cannibal Club. That's the way they became the Cannibal Club. So this is the story of the Cannibal Club. The Kuiper Belt Job is a caper story in space. I describe it as being a mashup of Ocean's 11 and the Expanse. And I'm going to read you a scene from this is the first time I've read this one. The scene is in the perspective of Shweta. Shweta is the grifter, the diplomat, the one who can sell you your own helmet and make you think you got a good deal. Other characters in this scene include we've got Kane the muscle, and we've got Case is Strange's son. He doesn't appear in the song because he didn't come along until later, but Case is Strange's son. Case shows up on Kane's doorstep one day and says that Dad's in jail and I'm putting the gang back together to break him out. So Case is kind of acting as leader of the gang even though he's only 16. And let's see, who else is in this scene? Okay, other characters in this scene include Alicia the thief and Ty the hacker. Okay, so we're in the point of view of Shweta, and they have succeeded in stealing the Malak Bell 8 prototype starship, the fastest spaceship in the solar system, and they are now in the process of being surrounded by coalition forces who are about to capture them. And it's going to be 67 minutes until the coalition forces have them completely surrounded, and it's about an hour and a half before they can hack their way into being able to control this ship that they have stolen. An hour and a half, I said, is definitely more than 67 minutes. Everyone looked at me. They won't shoot, at least, I said after a moment. They don't want to risk the ship or the hostages. Miyuki's face showed confusion. Ty, Alicia, and I being the hostages in question, I said. It was a complicated scheme, but they got away with the ship. Case and Kane arrived then. Their faceplates were flipped back, their faces slick with sweat from the work they'd just done, dragging a ton of explosives and other materials out of the shuttle in full station gravity. They're demanding we surrender, Case said, pointing to his ear. He'd routed all external communications to his suit. I did manage to take control of the guns, I said, but that won't be enough to make a difference against a whole attack squadron. Case shook his head. How long until they arrive? 66 minutes now, Miyuki replied, consulting the side screen. Case took that in stride. How long after that until they have an englobement that's too tight for you to slip through at maximum skip? Miyuki ran a few calculations on her nav screen. Maybe another half an hour after they arrive. Depends on how long our fade tail is. She was referring to the time the ship spent partially in normal space as it was transitioning to its first skip, which was an unknown factor with this prototype drive, and how aggressive they're prepared to be when they move in. They'll be pretty damn aggressive, Case looked at Ty. Can we get control of the drive in time? Ty glanced at the box where only 4 of the 7 lights glowed green. It hadn't changed since we'd arrived in the control room. I wouldn't bet my life on it. Case paused, his eyes unfocusing for what seemed a very long time. Then he blinked and returned his attention to the room. I have an idea, he said, but you aren't going to like it. Case's plan, insane though it was better than anything else that we could think of, so we immediately put it in motion. Ty and Miyuki stayed in the control center, working together on taking control of the ship. Alicia, more maneuverable than she'd been on the station, but still physically weak, bustled around the ship, making sure everything was properly dogged down. Even a stray bolt could hole the hull or disable the drive if it landed in the wrong place during sudden acceleration. And I went to the aft lock and started suiting up. I hate vac suits. The confinement, the pinching, the smell. But even more than the suit, I hate going outside. Spaceships have hulls for a reason. People were not meant to ride on the outside of them. Outer space is so very big, and every bit of it is trying to kill you. At least it was my own suit, which had come in on the shuttle with Case, Kane, and Miyuki. Adjusting one of the ship's suits to myself would have taken up just about all the time we had. Once I got myself all sealed in and inspected, we decompressed the lock and set to work. The second set of explosives consisted of 4 long metal boxes, 300 kilos each. We also had a set of brackets, which Case had designed and Ty had printed on the ship's fabricator. They looked rough and fragile and improvised, but Case assured me they would do the job. I hoped he was right. We'd have only one shot at it. It fell to Kane and I to shove the boxes out the door and maneuver them to their positions on the outer hull. Case followed with the brackets. His nimble little fingers would do better than mine at placing and fastening them. Damn him. Despite the desperate speed of our flight from the pursuing squadron, the exterior of the ship was as peaceful as ever. No rush of air, no whizzing bullets, no jerky evasive maneuvers, just dark and silent space, with the coalition squadron invisible behind us. We were still in extreme danger, of course. At this speed, the tiniest rock or bit of space junk could kill any of us without warning. And the ship's acceleration meant that the boxes, whose inertia made them a bear to handle even in absolute free fall, were made even more awkward by an apparent weight of some tens of kilos in the aft direction. That weight made the first box slip easily out of the lock, too easily. It picked up speed as it traveled backward, and Kane and I had to strain hard, grunting from the effort, just to stop it from falling away aft. Which had been the original idea, of course, but circumstances had changed. Reversing that motion and hauling the heavy box up the length of the ship was even more work, and soon my eyes were half blinded and stinging from sweat. Case met us at the first position and fixed the box in place with the first bracket. I paused only a moment, gasping and panting, before returning to the lock with Kane for the second box. Case remained behind to attach the remaining brackets. We had only half an hour to get all 4 boxes in place, but it felt like an eternity, a Sisyphean effort of hauling the bulky, balky boxes up a never-ending hull, one hand cramping from its unending grip on the box's handle while the other scrabbled for purchase on the hull. Then the pull, the brace of one foot on some protruding vent or antenna, and the reach for another half meter. I wasn't used to this level of physical exertion, and soon I was trembling, gasping, soaked with perspiration. I kept shaking the sweat out of my eyes, but even so I was half blinded by the floating droplets in the helmet. But I kept working. What choice did we have? The last box was the worst. With only minutes left on the timer, Kane and I were both exhausted, irritable, and error-prone. At one point, my foot slipped and the box and I went sliding backwards, panicked, dizzy, grasping for everything, only to stop short with a curse from Kane as he caught the weight of me and the box. I hung there from one arm for what seemed like forever before I managed to grab a protruding camera and haul myself and the heavy box back under control. Finally, with an assist from Case, we got it into position and fastened it to its brackets. Even my weight of only a couple of kilos felt like a ton as I hauled myself up into the aft lock. I was the last one in, and the door slid shut behind me. I lay panting on it as the lock repressurized. "They're here," Case said as I pulled my helmet off, droplets of sweat shimmering around me and falling slowly to the aft wall, already moving to englobe. His fingers tapped on his keyboard, and through his helmet speaker I heard the synthetic voice say, "Back off now, or we will destroy the ship. This is not a bluff." Kane wiped his eyes. His hair was lank with sweat. "Think they might back off?" Case replied with a cynical grin that belied his age. "Not a chance." He turned toward the interior hatch. Let's go see how Ty is doing with the drive." "Do we have control of the drive?" Case asked Ty as we entered the control room. "Not yet." 6 out of the 7 lights on the little box were now green, I noticed, but the 7th was blinking yellow. That didn't look good. "How much longer?" "I don't know," Ty snapped. "Miyuki," Case continued, "extrapolate their courses and map out an exit path for us. Assume 0% fade tail. We don't want to risk clipping one of them on the way out." That would be very bad. Miyuki sat frozen, hands clutching the joysticks and staring straight ahead at the nav screen. "Miyuki?" Alicia said, moving to put a hand on her shoulder. Miyuki didn't move. There's maybe a hole, but it's getting smaller fast, she rattled off in a fast monotone. And even if we can squeeze through, they'll track us. They won't be able to track us, Case said in that statement of fact voice. Kane snorted. There won't be enough left of us to track. He had been the most skeptical of Case's plan, though once we'd all agreed to it, he'd worked as hard as any of us to make it happen. Alicia silenced him with a glare, then returned her attention to Miyuki, holding her shoulders firmly and leaning in to speak low and calm in her ear. We have a plan, she reassured her. We're going to get away, but we need you to fly the ship, okay? Miyuki switched all over, then settled herself in the seat, flexing her hands on the joysticks. Fly the ship, she repeated. Fly the ship. You can do it. Alicia gave her shoulders another squeeze. The next few minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the increasingly frequent ping of the proximity alarm as the coalition ships closed in around us. All we could do was watch Ty as they pounded the keyboard in increasing frustration. Suddenly, Ty spat out a curse in Vietnamese. It's the goddamn admin password, they shouted. How could that be wrong? They turned to me. The administrator password was one of the things you gave us. The hack used it to get access in the first place. How could it fail now? Shit, I said. I just changed it a few minutes ago so we could access the guns. Mingled anger and relief ran across Ty's face. Key it in. A keyboard appeared on my station, and I typed in the new password. A moment later, the last light turned green, followed swiftly by dozens of other indicators on the drive control panel. A rising hum thrummed through the ship as the drive came online. We're in! Case tightened his shoulder straps and turned to Miyuki. Do you have a course? Maybe? She still had a death grip on the joysticks, but she wasn't frozen the way she had been. It's going to be very tight. Lock it in and get ready to execute. Case turned to Kane. Ready with the trigger? Kane, already strapped in hard, held the detonator control in his lap, the trigger button already uncapped and both thumbs resting on it. Ready. We all looked at each other. This might be goodbye. No one said anything. Wishing good luck was bad luck in the Cannibal Club. On 3 then, Case. 1, 2. We all held our breath. 3. Then everything happened at once. An enormous crashing bang surrounded from all sides. The whole ship rattled like dice in a cup. Every screen went white. A dozen different klaxons went off. Miyuki screamed, and my eyes and my ears twisted in my skull, the sensation of transitioning to skip, but stronger and weirder than I'd ever felt before. I think I might have blacked out for a minute there. The original plan, of course, had been to wait until everything was unlocked and ready for our escape before the hostages were taken aboard. We would then move away from the station, drop the explosives behind us, and detonate them just as we entered skip. But this depended on getting far enough away from the station that they wouldn't have sufficient parallax to detect that the explosion that apparently destroyed the ship had actually taken place between the ship and the station. But being nearly englobed by coalition craft meant that we had to mount the explosives on the hull with standoff brackets to give us a chance of avoiding real destruction while we skipped away at the moment of detonation. But it was only a chance. The explosives, packed with carefully chosen space junk, had not been designed for this. I awoke to flickering darkness and the smell of smoke. Not good. Harsh white emergency lighting snapped on, revealing everyone still strapped in and no one screaming or visibly bleeding. The atmosphere was hazy and full of floating junk. Half the screens and indicators were dead, and the drive was silent. Ty! Case shouted, and I realized he'd been shouting their name for a while. How's the ship? Drive's fine, they said. It ran the course Miyuki set, then shut itself off. Atmosphere shows a little pressure drop, not too serious, no structural alarms. Where are we? I asked. Miyuki consulted her instruments. We're 3,100 clicks from where we started. She turned to face me, still shaking, but with an elated grin plastered across her face. In 8 seconds, from a standing start. That was half again faster than the best we could have done in Contessa, and she'd been no slouch. Case didn't take any time to be impressed. Any sign of pursuit? I had to help Miyuki with that. The coalition craft aren't moving out of the blast area, I reported after a minute. No indication they're looking for us. We all worked together for the next few hours, getting the ship back in shape after her very rushed shakedown cruise. Despite Alicia's efforts, she hadn't been completely secured for a hard run, and some of the cabinets had spilled their contents into the air. The explosion and acceleration had shaken a few hull plates loose, but Case and Kane managed to patch the holes without having to go outside. Miyuki and Tai got most of the detectors and other ship systems back online, apart from a few antennas and cameras on the outer hull that had been completely destroyed by the explosions. And Alicia and I worked to complete our takeover of the ship and assess our status in the outside world. I think I'll stop there.